Part 1. 1951 Occupation. A fitting culmination to the swift succession of glorious victories that became known as the Blitzkrieg was the successful execution of Operation Sea Lion. With almost supernatural good timing, the forces of the Reich took full advantage of the period of calm which followed the freak storms that had decimated the British Navy. General Strauss's 19th Army landed in force on the south coast, establishing a beachhead between Folkestone and Worthing. Thanks to the previous defeat of the British Air Force by the invincible Luftwaffe, air supremacy was maintained at all times. Despite the boastings of the arch-criminal Churchill, later executed for war crimes, British resistance was minimal and the operation was completed in 6 days. The Thousand-Year Reich, The Glorious Beginning by Joseph Goebbels. Published New Berlin, 1947. 1. Time Warp. Beside a broad and sluggish river, a group of concrete pavilions huddled together under a fine drizzling rain. A tall, slender tower soared gracefully into the mists towards a grey and cloudy sky. A soggy flag hung limply from the flagstaff at the top. At the edge of the site, in a still unfinished area, a blue police box materialised amidst a clutter of building materials. A flimsy stake fence cordoned off a section of riverbank, littered with stacks of timber, concrete breeze blocks, and general builder's litter, beyond which a concrete embankment sloped steeply down to the river. A smallish, dark-haired man popped out of the police box. He wore shabby brown checked trousers, a brown sports jacket with a garish Fair Isle pullover beneath, and a jaunty straw hat. He clutched a red-handled umbrella and peered around him with keen grey eyes. A brown-haired, round-faced girl in a badge-covered bomber jacket followed him from the police box, closing the door behind her. She too looked around, though with considerably less enthusiasm. "I don't suppose you know where we are, Professor? Or when?" The little man, who was more usually known as the Doctor, gave her a reproachful glance. "As it happens, I do, Ace. We've arrived in London, the Festival of Britain, 1951. "How can you be so sure?" He pointed with his umbrella. "I recognised the skylon at once. So magnificently frivolous, so un-British. A tower with no other purpose than to be a tower. A symbol to mark the end of post-war austerity and the hope of future prosperity." "You what?" "England's just recovering from the battering she had in the war." "We won, didn't we? Our finest hour and all that. People never stopped going on about it." "You won, but only just. The whole country was exhausted. Now they're getting over it, so they've decided to kick up their heels a bit and have a festival." The girl called Ace surveyed the wide expanse of rain-lashed concrete. "Some festival?" "Remember you're British, Ace. You're supposed to like taking your pleasures sadly." Ace sniffed and a raindrop ran down her nose. She studied the slender tower and saw a sudden gust of wind unfurl the flag. "Professor?" "What?" "If this is England and we won the war, why is there a swastika flag on that tower?" The Doctor looked. There it was, the black crooked cross in the white circle against a blood-red background. "There was one just like it in Commander Millington's office in the naval base," Ace said helpfully. "You remember, he'd turned the place into a replica of the cipher room in Berlin." Yes, yes," said the Doctor impatiently. He glared at the flag. "Let's take a look around." "Hang on, Professor." "What?" "Is she here then?" "Who?" "Ishtar, the Timewyrm, whatever she calls herself." The Doctor took a small device from his pocket. It was completely inert, no sound, no flashing lights. He shook it, tapped it, and then put it away. "Apparently not." "We're supposed to be chasing her." "Well, maybe we overshot or undershot or something. It's easily done. Nobody's perfect." They walked along the muddy riverside path, looking for a way onto the festival site. Eventually, they reached a place where a section of the fence had been trodden down to provide a makeshift entrance. Probably kids, thought Ace. They'd sooner play on the building site than visit the festival. Come to think of it, so would I. The Doctor led her through the gap, out of the building site area and into one of the pavilions. It held a photo exhibition, a series of events pinned down in black and white photographs. The photographs were on stands which wound round the pavilion in a trail that was obviously meant to be followed, but there was no one to follow it. The pavilion was empty. Ace looked casually at the first picture. It showed a group of men in grey and black uniforms on a stand outside Buckingham Palace. They were grouped around a slender, fair-haired man and a small, dark woman with a high forehead and tightly drawn-back hair. The woman wore an enormous jewelled crown. The caption read, "Restored to his rightful throne, His Majesty King Edward VIII, accompanied by Her Royal Highness Queen Wallis, signs the Treaty of Accord, formally establishing Great Britain as a protectorate of the German Empire." The doctor's face was grave. "This is all wrong, Ace. There's been temporal interference on a massive scale." "The Timewyrm?" The doctor scowled at the photograph. "I never trusted those Windsors." Ace peered at the photographs with mild interest, faint memories stirring of some magazine rehash of scandals of the past. "Isn't that the Duke of Windsor? Gave up his throne because they wouldn't let him marry some American bird. The king who gave all for love." "He was a vain and silly man," said the doctor crossly, "and he was a German sympathiser from his early youth. Gave poor old Winston no end of trouble." Ace shrugged. "So now he's got his throne back. Does it matter? Who cares who's king?" "A king is a very important symbol, and what matters is what he symbolises." The doctor followed the photo trail, staring hard at every picture, every caption. A photograph of a tall, black-shirted man with a thin moustache was captioned, "Prime Minister Mosley addresses occupied Britain's first National Socialist Parliament." There were lots more pictures, meetings, ceremonies, public occasions. Mosley was prominent in all of them. "This bloke Mosley's doing well," said Ace. "Sir Oswald Mosley," said the doctor over his shoulder. "Founder of the British Union of Fascists. They interned him when the war started, let him go and it was over. After that he just sort of fizzled out. Not here he didn't. He seems to be top of the heap." The doctor was looking at a big photo of a miserable-looking gang of men digging an enormous trench. Members of the British Labour Voluntary Force at work on the new coastal fortifications in Calais. Ace got bored and went and stood by the door of the pavilion looking out. Everything seemed normal enough. The festival wasn't drawing much of a crowd, but that was hardly surprising considering the filthy weather. Here and there umbrella-carrying visitors, women and children mostly, scurried from one pavilion to another. The doctor finished his tour and came over and stood beside her, staring grimly at the swastika on the skylon. "It's all wrong," he muttered. "Maybe it's a joke," said Ace, attempting to cheer him up. "Medical students or something, like chamber pots on church spires." The doctor jerked a thumb over his shoulder. "And all this?" "Another joke?" suggested Ace without much hope. If Hitler had won. People write books." The doctor shook his head. "Nice try, Ace. But it's all too horribly real, I'm afraid." "But it can't be. The Nazis lost World War II. We had something to do with it ourselves, remember? Is it the Timewyrm?" "Possibly, but it doesn't feel like her style." "Who then?" The doctor stared broodingly into time. "Well, there was that meddling monk, of course. There were others." Ace looked around the festival. Things were a bit more cheerful now. It had stopped raining, and a fitful sunshine struggled through the clouds. "I'm hungry." "And how can you think of food with a major temporal crisis on our hands?" "There's a stall over there," said Ace. "How about a cuppa and a bun?" Picking her way between the puddles, she led the way across the wet concrete to the coffee stall. Behind the counter, a round-faced, beaky-nosed little man was moodily polishing teaspoons. The sign above his head read, "The Coffee Shop, Prop Harry Gold." He cheered up at the approach of trade. "Morning, lady and gent. Brightening up a bit, eh? What can I do you for?" His Cockney accent was as rich and thick as a bowl of jellied eels. "2 teas and 2 currant buns, please," said Ace. The little man reached for a huge metal teapot and added boiling water from an urn. He gave the contents a quick stir and poured the tea into 2 thick white china cups, adding milk from a jug. "Help yourself to sugar substitute." He nodded towards a bowl of white powder on the counter. Next to it there was a spoon, on the end of a chain. He took 2 buns from under a glass stand and put them on 2 plates on the counter. "That'll be a tanner, love." Ace looked blankly at him. "A tanner! 6pence!" said the little man impatiently. "Tea's 2pence, buns a penny." The doctor fished in his pocket, peered at a handful of coins from different times and various planets, selected a small silver coin and handed it over. "Bob, thank you very much," said the little man, tossing it into the wooden till behind him. He took out an even smaller silver coin and handed it to the doctor. "And a tanner change." The tea was thin and watery, and the buns seemed to be made of cardboard. Hungry as she was, Ace had a job to keep chewing, and the doctor gave up after a single bite. The little man caught his eye. "I know. Tea tastes like cat pee and the bun's like an old soldier's socks." "Ersatz?" said the doctor mysteriously. "What isn't these days? Not that I'm complaining, mind you," added the little man hurriedly. "Since the dawn of the new order, we've never been healthier and happier." He chanted the last few words as if repeating a slogan. "What's ersatz?" asked Ace. "Imitation," said the doctor. "Substitute." "Fake," said the little man bitterly. "Fake tea, fake flour, fake baccy." He broke off as 2 youths slouched towards the kiosk. "Oh my God, here's trouble." The new arrivals had brutally cropped hair and big army boots, and they wore khaki battle-dress jackets with black trousers. Armbands had been sewn to the right sleeve of each jacket. They showed a Union Jack with a swastika superimposed. Underneath were the letters BFK. Shouldering Ace and the doctor aside, they leaned on the kiosk counter. "Morning, boys. What'll it be?" The little man's cheerfulness was as ersatz as his buns. "2 cuppers," said the first youth. "And a pound out the till," said the second. They sniggered. With trembling hands the little man poured them cups of tea. The first youth snatched up a cup, took a swig, and spat it out full in the little man's face. "Cat piss!" The little man grabbed a tea cloth and mopped his face. To Ace's horrified amazement he actually tried to smile. "Yeah, you're right. I was saying so just now. Tell you what, I'll make you a fresh pot, hot and strong. How about that? On the house." He emptied the teapot and began shovelling fresh tea in. Seething, Ace took a step forward and felt the doctor's restraining hand on her arm. His grey eyes were examining the 2 young men with a cold, remote interest, like a scientist studying microbes on a slide. Trembling with anger, Ace looked round for help. To her enormous relief, she saw the familiar shape of a British bobby not far away. Ace had had her problems with the police in her time, but she was pleased to see this one. She ran up to the blue-helmeted figure. "We need some help." Middle-aged, fatherly, reassuringly big and solid, the policeman might have been Dixon of Dock Green in person. He touched his helmet. "Yes, miss? What seems to be the trouble?" "It's those 2 over there. They're bullying the coffee stall man, trying to get money off him." The policeman followed her gaze. "Those 2 in the tunics?" "Yes, please come." The policeman didn't move. "Did you happen to notice armbands on those tunics with letters underneath?" "Yes, a BF something. Why, does it matter?" "BFK, miss. Stands for Britisher Freikorps. British Free Corps." "So does that mean they can do what they like?" "That's exactly what it means." The policeman's voice took on a formal sound, as if reciting some regulation. "The authority of the BFK stems directly from the Third Reich and supersedes that of the civilian police in all cases." He returned to his ordinary voice. "I can't interfere, and I don't advise you to either. They might start on you next. I couldn't do anything about that either." Touching his helmet again, the policeman strolled on his way. Ace turned and ran back to the kiosk where the 2 youths had just finished their tea. "All right," the first was saying. "Now how about that pound out the till?" £2, said the second. "Better still, make it a fiver." "2 fivers, said the first. The little man tried to smile. "Now come on, lads, fair's fair. Joke's a joke, and you're welcome to the tea, but—" The second youth looked at the name above the kiosk. "Funny sort of name, Gold. Wouldn't be short for Goldstein, would it?" The little man went white. Before he could answer, the first youth grabbed him by the front of his jacket and hauled him halfway across the counter. "Hand over the cash, you lousy kike, or we'll smash up the stall and you as well, and turn in what's left to the Racial Affairs Bureau." Ace lunged for the tough, holding the little man over the counter. Again the doctor held her back. "Wie heißen Sie?" he shouted in a loud, harsh voice. The youth let go of the little man and swung round in amazement. He stared blankly at the doctor. "Wie heißen Sie, Dummkopf?" bellowed the doctor. Stepping smartly forward, he slapped the astonished youth full across the face. Ace looked on amazed as the doctor delivered a second slap, a backhander this time. It was a solid blow with all the doctor's unlikely strength behind it, and it rocked the youth on his face. He staggered, and blood trickled from his nose. "Ear!" began the second youth uncertainly. The back of the doctor's hand smashed him across the mouth. "Sie still!" he whirled back to the first victim. "Namen!" "Look, I'm sorry," muttered the youth. "We don't speak German." "So, perhaps it is as well." The doctor sounded like every Gestapo officer in every old war movie Ace had ever seen. "The German language would be polluted by the lips of scum such as you, your names, and your units." He marched up to the first youth, stood on tiptoe and screamed into his face, "Stand to attention when you address me!" The two lads snapped to a clumsy form of attention. "Sidney Harris," said the first. "George Brady," said the second. "London Unit 4, British Free Corps." "So," said the doctor, icily calm again, "and what are your standing orders as regards this festival?" "Just keep an eye on things," said Sidney Harris uneasily. "Watch out for subversive behaviour, signs of disorder." "Exactly. And do you see any signs of disorder here?" Once again the doctor's voice became a terrifying screech. "Apart from that which you have created yourselves?" White-faced and quivering, Sidney and George were too terrified to speak. "You will return to your unit," said the doctor. "You will report to your superior and place yourself under arrest on charges of attempted extortion." His voice rose again. "Now move! Add the double! Ein, zwei, ein, zwei!" To Ace's amazement, the two young men turned and ran, disappearing between the pavilions at a stiff jog trot. The doctor turned to Harry Gold. "I'm sorry this had to happen. They won't trouble you again." The little man backed away. "No trouble, sir. I don't want to make trouble. Good lads, I'm sure. Just harmless fun." "Look, it's all right," said Ace. "There's no need to be frightened of us." The little man stared at her, his trembling lips trying to smile. He picked up a cloth and began polishing his counter, making stiff, jerky movements like a robot. The doctor touched her arm. "Come on, Ace." Sadly, Ace moved away. Then she cheered up, thinking of the two yobs doubling away. "Well done, Professor. You certainly saw those two off in style." The doctor gave her one of his enigmatic looks. "Enjoyed it, did you?" "Yeah, why not?" "So did I," said the doctor. "That sort of thing gets enjoyable very quickly. We scared the man at the tea stall too. Did you enjoy that?" "All right, I get the point." She gave him a wondering look. "That was quite a performance, Professor. All that screaming and yelling." "Standard Gestapo technique," said the doctor absently. "It's called Anschnauzen, snorting. Very useful in interrogating prisoners. If you start screaming and yelling and hitting people straight away, they get disorientated." "That's horrible." "That's just for openers," said the doctor. "Things get nasty after that." "Where are we going now?" "Back to the TARDIS." "We're leaving?" "I'm not sure. I need to think, and I can't do it out here." "Why not?" "Fear. Fear and evil," said the doctor matter-of-factly. "Can't you feel it, Ace? It's in the air like poison." He marched briskly to the edge of the festival grounds, towards the place where they'd left the TARDIS.